Is urinary mycotoxin testing useful for indoor mold exposure? Hi, I'm Chris Masterjohn, and I have a PhD in nutritional sciences. I am not a medical doctor, and nothing contained in this episode may be construed as medical or nutritional advice of any kind, or a substitute therefore. This episode is meant purely as scientific education. If you wish to act on any ideas presented in this episode, please consult your physician first, and never take anything herein as a reason to contradict medical advice. With that said, enjoy the episode. Danny M was asking if I have experience with urinary mycotoxin testing, for example, Great Plains Labs, for identifying mold exposure, and whether that correlates with actual mold exposure or if I've found other explanations for elevated test results. So when I was dealing with a severe mold-related illness driven by mold exposure in my apartment a few years ago, I didn't use the Great Plains test. I used real-time mycotoxin test, but it's testing the same set of mycotoxins. And I had the dust from my apartment sampled, and I had my urine sampled. And meanwhile, I also had an inspector come, and just the inspector found visible black mold that was seeping out of my where the tiles of the, or where the wall of the shower bathtub meets the like the ledge of the bathtub. So in that corner, black mold was seeping out of that joint. And he also pointed out, which I never noticed, but was very obvious after he pointed it out to me, that if you turned and faced so that you were, so that your eyesight was parallel to the wall, and then just turned slightly to look at the wall, you could visibly see the wall bulging out, reflecting the mold growth inside the wall. And I developed a severe illness when I was sleeping on a couch on the other side of the wall. And so he pointed out that sheetrock is porous enough for mycotoxins to go through. And so one hypothesis was that there was an enormous amount of black mold inside that wall that was just constantly seeping out into the living room through that wall on top of me while I was sleeping on the couch, or just onto the couch that I was sleeping in. But anyway, point being, I had urinary mycotoxins that were elevated, and I had mycotoxins that were elevated in the dust in my apartment, and the dust mycotoxins were completely different from the urinary mycotoxins, making it totally implausible that even though I had a severe symptomatic mold-induced illness caused by obvious visible mold contamination in my apartment, there was still no correlation between the urinary mycotoxins and the apartment mycotoxins. And so I concluded that whatever I spent, like at least $1,200 or if not $2,000 or whatever on those tests, was totally useless. And honestly, it was much more significant that I noticed that my brain fog went away when I was outside and not in my apartment. And so I just, I think those urinary mycotoxins, they might be coming from your apartment, but there's a good chance they're coming from your food. Most people have urinary mycotoxins, and it's from the food supply. And it's probably not clinically significant quite often. And so I'm not against testing it, but I just, like, if finances are at all limiting, it's not the top thing I would do. I would be much more interested in, do you have symptoms that are compatible with mold-induced illness? And do they go away when you spend time away from the place that you think is contaminated with mold? The number one hint, the number one is not even a hint. The number one red flag that you have environmental mold exposure is if you get out of the environment, the symptoms go away. So look at the price of a vacation and the price of the mycotoxins and make a cost-benefit analysis. And just assume that the vacation will tell you as much as the mycotoxin test will tell you. So assume the benefit is the same, and the vacation has the added benefit of whatever you would value about being on vacation, and then see how the cost lines up and decide what you'd rather do from a cost-benefit analysis. Because actually, I don't assume that the benefit is the same. Assume you'll get more information from taking a vacation, getting out of the putatively moldy environment than you would get out of your urinary mycotoxin test. That's what I would say. All right. Thank you, Danny, for your question. Hope that helps. This episode was part of a Q&A for members of the CMJ Masterpass, where I hold monthly private Zoom Q&As for my members. The Masterpass also serves as a buyer's club with exclusive and massive discounts on your favorite premium foods and health products, including pasture-raised and wild meat and seafood, supplements, sleep accessories, water filters, phototherapy devices, and much more. If you'd like to participate in these Q&As, you can join the Masterpass at chrismasterjohnphd.com/masterpass and use the code Q&A, spelled Q-A-N-D-A, Q&A, for 10% lifetime discount. I am currently working full-time on finishing my first book, Vitamins and Minerals 101, How to Get the Nutrients You Need on Any Diet. I will let you know when I have a release date. In the meantime, you can pre-order the book at chrismasterjohnphd.com/book. Testing Nutritional Status, the Ultimate Cheat Sheet, has been newly released as version 1.3. This is my comprehensive system for managing nutritional status with lab tests, dietary analysis, and comprehensive intake of your signs and symptoms. The new version has a comprehensive guide to interpreting the Genova methylation panel. You can pick up your copy at chrismasterjohnphd.com/cheat sheet. In my consulting, I am neither a medical practitioner nor a coach. I serve as your data analyst and your strategist. I teach you scientific principles of health and wellness, help you analyze your data, and help brainstorm actionable strategies. You can sign up for a consultation at chrismasterjohnphd.com/consultations. Please consider supporting my work at no extra cost to you by visiting my support page and making a purchase with one of my affiliate links. Some of my most popular affiliates are also listed in the description of this video, with links that will give me credit for your purchase. I will try to respond to comments when I can, but my presence will be intermittent while I'm finishing my book. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next episode.